I'm here with Paige Olson, the creative play expert, and this is part of the series on why libraries are still relevant in our modern society. Paige, so we've gone through the whole experience in the library. Well, now you've brought books home. Now what? How do we interact? How do you interact with them?
Well, it's a good question. There's multiple different ways to interact with them, but I think more importantly, it's providing the time so that the child has the opportunity to look at the books. I mean, it's great to go to the library and check out the books, but their life is so ultra scheduled, they don't even have an opportunity to look at the book. And then the other thing is don't judge the child on how they look at the book.
Okay.
Because different people interact with books and their brains work in different ways. For example, first of all, we're sitting in the library in my house. I didn't buy all the books that we checked out from the library, but if we checked out a book multiple times, or we discovered something we really, really, really liked and we knew that we were going to look at it over and over and over again, I purchased it. Or
So that's
it was
all
given
about
to us.
paying attention to what your children are
Paying
interested
attention, right.
in. Yeah.
So one of the series of books I purchased is American Girl.
Okay.
Had these wonderful, the first 8 girls had these wonderful books.
Okay.
And my son even learned, because American Girl isn't just about the doll, it's about history.
Okay.
And we're, in this family, history is something we love. And so when you open this book, and the kids would open the book, so if you open the book, some people are going to read it page by page, front to back. And they're going to look at it. Mom, will you read this? And we'll look at it, and I love these books because they're full of pictures, page by page by page.
Okay.
Others are going to skip through it. And they'll look at a page, and they might stop longer on one page because it interests them and spend less time on another page. They might start at the beginning of the book and flip to the back of the book. They might look for a specific subject, like, for example, she's during the war, so they might go, oh, here's I'm interested in war today, so here's women. So they're going to skip around in the book. And that is absolutely okay because it's about their engagement, not yours. And so we have to remember that as adults, is to not put on the child how to interact with the book, but allow the child to discover for themselves how they interact with the books.
Okay. And you spoke of the importance of allowing time for your children to interact. So how much are we talking about here? Or is there a rule? Or
There's no rule. I mean,
Okay.
really, the most important thing is don't overschedule your child's life.
Okay.
Allow them time to play, and looking at books is part of the play carpet. I mean, this is part of it. It's not always playing and interacting. This is the gathering of information, and how long they interact with it. Don't judge it. When they interact with it. I mean, obviously 3 in the morning, probably for 4-year-olds, not the wisest idea, right? But so there are some boundaries you need to establish, but at the same time, encourage it, and then watch and see how they engage with it. Now,
Okay.
not all books are picture books.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you spoke earlier about the importance of reading to your children.
Yes.
Can you go into the specifics of that a little bit more? About how you actually go about doing this to make it a good experience for your children.
There's this idea of, you're being so rude, put that toy down and listen to me, or I'm not going to read to you anymore. And that is so disrespectful to the child. So absolutely, because you're judging what they're doing and their ability to listen to you based on what you feel is etiquette or right or wrong. And I'm not saying throw away etiquette. I'm saying understand your child. When my son listened to stories, he could not sit quietly. He could not bounce on a ball. He could not roll around on the floor. The only way he could hear the story was to engage in doing something with his hands. And he was old. When he got old enough, he would have Legos, but sometimes he would race cars on the floor. Whatever the age was, it was appropriate toys. But the time I got to Legos. And I would read, and sometimes I go, oh, he's not listening. I mean, I'm a mom and raised with this, oh, and I would stop myself and I'd say, I would read and then I'd ask questions. What do you think about such and such and such? And it would be asked in such a way that I would be able to tell if he's listening or not. And it was amazing when he was actually engaged in with his hands. He could give me the minute details of where they were, or what color was this, or who was doing whatever. He was absolutely listening to the story. But if he was made to sit still, first of all, he got cranky, and he would say, I'm not interested in the story. I'm going to go do something else. But he couldn't hear the story. He literally couldn't hear the story. Where my daughter, she'd snuggle up and she'd kind of sit. Sometimes she might even look at another book or play with something or knit or crochet. And so she did some different things. But again, it was always this, for lack of a better word, of test. Find out. If you start feeling inside yourself that your children are being rude, find out if they're hearing what you're reading. And one of the best things is when you get to the end of the chapter and you say, oh, story's done, and they go, no. And then you go, okay, well, can you tell me what I just read? And you start having a conversation, and they absolutely heard you. Then you need to relax, because whatever's happening in the moment is good, and it's right, and it's just for everybody involved. And you as the parent need to take a deep breath and lose all of those incorrect messages that you've been getting and all those incorrect etiquette ideas, for lack of a better word, and you need to stop, and you need to realize that in reading this book, it's about engaging with your children, and it's about enjoying the moment. And if they're hearing you, then embrace it and enjoy it. We used to read for hours. I'd lose my voice, and they'd be doing their little things, and we would stop. We would engage in what we were. It's not like I just read. We'd stop, we'd engage, we'd talk, have conversations.
Yeah, there's that whole thing about allowing one of the listeners to interrupt,
Right.
so that a conversation can be had and that sort of thing. I'm sure there's boundaries that have to be laid out and that sort of thing, but that's part of what you're talking about.
Right. So really, don't judge.
Yeah, figure out what works.
Figure out what works, and listen to what your child's behavior is telling you. I mean, if they're playing and they're not listening,
Yeah,
and so they're not hearing, then you can say, it sounds like you'd rather play with those toys than me read, and I'm okay with that.
yeah,
But if what they're doing allows them to engage in the story, then you need to allow it to happen.
right.
Absolutely. And they're not being rude. They're being able to hear